Most people think being good is enough, that if you're kind, honest, and selfless, life will reward you. But Carl Jung, the legendary Swiss psychiatrist, had a much darker, far more honest message for good people. He believed that light alone is not enough, that within every person lives not only a force for good, but also a force of darkness. And unless we face that darkness, we are living a lie, no matter how good we pretend to be. This is not a motivational video, it's a warning. Jung's work wasn't about comfort, it was about truth, and truth is rarely comfortable. His message? The path to wholeness, to authenticity, requires walking through the shadows we spend our lives avoiding. Jung believed the greatest obstacle to self-understanding is the illusion that we already know ourselves. But real self-knowledge requires more than observation or reflection. It demands courage. Because what lies beneath our conscious mind are not just dreams and memories, but primal urges, hidden fears, and repressed desires. True self-awareness means confronting those hidden layers, not just identifying them, but resisting their silent control over our behavior. Many people assume that discovering who they really are is a peaceful journey. Jung would tell you that's a dangerous illusion. What we call a personality is often just a collection of masks, roles we play to please others, to fit into society, to avoid judgment. We shape ourselves to meet expectations and hide our true needs behind layers of performance. To see beyond those masks, you must first become independent of the world's approval. You must walk alone. That journey, Jung said, is a confrontation with the shadow, the collection of traits and impulses we deny, suppress, or disown. Without meeting your shadow, you cannot know your true self. But confronting it is not a gentle process. It's often traumatic. Because the shadow includes everything we've been taught to hide: anger, envy, shame, selfishness. And yet, Jung insisted, facing it is the only way to truly be free. Most people never attempt this. Instead, they chase external goals, success, praise, acceptance, believing these things will fill the void. But as long as you run from your inner truth, your achievements are built on sand. To find your authentic self, you must be willing to lose everything false. This is why self-knowledge is so rare. It demands we stop running, even when running feels safer. People fear what they might discover. They avoid the silence where the real answers live, and so they stay strangers to themselves. Jung warned that ignoring the shadow doesn't make it go away, it makes it more dangerous. When denied, our shadow takes over in subtle ways, through projection, through sabotage, through addiction and despair. Until we accept our dark side, we are not whole, we are hollow. But here is the paradox. Inside your shadow also lies your power. Rejected emotions hold not just pain, but also creativity, passion, freedom. By integrating the parts of yourself you've feared or buried, you unlock untapped energy and potential. Jung believed that this reconciliation with the shadow is not just healing for the individual, it is healing for society. Because a world full of people denying their darkness is a world full of projection, conflict, and misunderstanding. When you accept your shadow, you become more human, not less. You gain the ability to love yourself as a whole being, not just the curated image you present to the world. And from that wholeness comes the power to love others, not as idealized fantasies, but as real, flawed human beings. Jung called this process one of the foundations of maturity. It's not easy, but it's necessary. True transformation does not come from light alone. It comes from the marriage of light and dark, of conscious and unconscious, of ego and shadow. Without that union, your growth is incomplete. Jung also warned about a deeper trap, one that especially good people fall into: the loss of individuality. Society, he said, is always shaping you. From childhood, we're taught how to think, how to act, what to want. We inherit scripts, follow roles, imitate others, and slowly, we forget who we really are. True individuality, according to Jung, is not rebellion for its own sake. It is a return to one's inner nature. It is discovering your own values, desires, and direction, even if they contradict what society expects. This is not an easy path. It means risking rejection. It means letting go of belonging in order to belong to yourself. But without this step, no real freedom is possible. We're trained to be successful, but not to be real. To be liked, but not to be whole. So we conform, fit in, and drift further from the person we were meant to become. Jung believed that this alienation leads to a kind of identity crisis, a deep inner conflict between the person we've become and the person we secretly are. But this crisis, painful as it is, can be the beginning of awakening. When the mask cracks, the real face begins to show. When conformity fails to satisfy, the soul begins to speak. Jung saw this not as pathology but as opportunity, the soul calling you back to yourself. To be yourself in a world that insists on shaping you is an act of quiet defiance. But Jung believed it was possible. That true individuality is not about rejecting society but existing authentically within it. It is the art of walking your own path while remaining connected to the world, of saying yes to your nature without saying no to others. This balance, he said, is not about perfection. It's about integrity. When you live from your inner truth, even your flaws become honest. Even your darkness becomes sacred. And in a world built on illusions, that honesty is revolutionary. So no, Jung would not tell you to be nicer or more positive or to just believe in yourself. He would tell you to go deeper, to look into the mirror without turning away, to embrace the frightening, forgotten parts of yourself. Not because they are pretty, but because they are real. And because without them, you are not complete. When we begin to live according to our own inner values, Jung warns that this process can stir up inner conflict and moral distress. That's because the external ideals of what is good often clash with our true inner nature. To be truly good, one must reconcile with their shadow, those darker parts of themselves they would rather not see. As long as a person denies their shadow, all efforts to be good remain superficial and inauthentic. Jung called the shadow all the parts of the personality we reject, suppress, and dislike. These include emotions like anger, jealousy, hatred, and more. From Jung's perspective, being good isn't a matter of obeying rules or pleasing others. It requires much more: personal effort, self-awareness, and radical honesty. To be kind, we must help others, practice fairness, show compassion, and stand for truth. But these virtues don't grow from chasing approval or rewards. According to Jung, to become truly whole and mentally healthy, a person must be honest with themselves, accept their darkness, and live independently of societal expectations. True well-being, Jung believed, is a journey that takes courage and patience. To become a genuinely good human being, one must face and resolve inner conflicts again and again. It's an ongoing process, a constant internal dialogue, a movement toward inner integration. Moral maturity comes not from conforming to society, but from resisting its pressure and preserving one's own integrity. Real humanity means not only making others happy, but also guarding one's inner peace and sense of balance. Jung emphasized the importance of confronting social norms, embracing the shadow, and cultivating internal honesty on our journey inward. Being a good person isn't as easy as it sounds. It's not just about external behavior, but about internal transformation. According to Jung, it's about finding balance between the true self and the social world, and someone who achieves that balance builds meaningful and healthy relationships with themselves and with the world. Let's talk about fear and our struggle with it. Most people try to suppress their fears, ignore them, or project them onto the world around them. But inside, our fears grow more complex, more intense when we avoid them. These aren't just abstract thoughts floating in our minds. They're heavy emotional and psychological burdens rooted deep in our psyche and subconscious. Jung believed that in the path of spiritual growth and individuation, fear is a part of our inner shadow, and we cannot live a healthy life without embracing that shadow. He pointed out that our fears are essentially repressed emotions, past traumas, and rejected thoughts buried in the unconscious. Most of the time, people don't even realize what they're afraid of, because these fears operate beneath the surface of awareness. You can't truly know yourself until you face your fears. Jung argued that instead of denying or escaping fear, we must recognize it and confront it. That confrontation unlocks a deeper understanding of who we are and helps us grow. Fear doesn't just drain us of energy, it also gives us clues. It shows us where our deepest work lies. Our fears may be the doorway to our own transformation. Jung insisted this confrontation is essential to spiritual development, and that courage in the face of fear is not optional, it's necessary. But make no mistake, facing fear is not easy. It can be painful. Often, our fears are not just about external threats, but about inner wounds, unresolved conflicts, and memories we try to forget. Jung believed fear serves not just to protect us, but also as an internal alarm system. It reveals imbalance, it exposes what is unhealed, and if we avoid our fears, those imbalances can grow worse, driving us deeper into unconscious suffering. You walk away not because you've figured everything out. You walk away because the version of you that stayed is already dying. Every step away is a burial, and every burial a birth. But it doesn't feel like that. It feels like failure, like grief, like tearing your own skin off, quietly, so no one sees the blood. You don't leave because you don't care. You leave because staying means betraying something sacred inside of you, the thing that keeps whispering, "This is not who you are." And if you ignore that voice long enough, it becomes a scream, and then silence, the kind of silence where you no longer recognize your own reflection. Carl Jung called this moment Nigredo, the blackening, the necessary death of what you thought you were before anything new can live. It's the burning of false identities, the ashes of roles you played too long, and walking away is the spark that lights that fire. You may think you're running away, but in truth you're stepping into a sacred alchemy, a descent, not to escape the world but to reclaim your soul from it. And that descent is brutal. There are no maps, only instincts, only that faint pull from somewhere deep inside that says, keep going. Walking away is not a conclusion. It's the first test of initiation. It's when the hero must leave the village, the old life, the known gods. It's when the mask begins to crack, and underneath, the raw, trembling face of something real begins to emerge. But no one applauds you for that. Most people will call you selfish, unstable, unreliable, and part of you will believe them. That's the trap. We're taught to value loyalty to others more than loyalty to ourselves. But if the price of loyalty is the slow erosion of your soul, is it still noble, or is it just convenient for those who benefit from your silence? You don't walk away to punish anyone. You walk away to stop punishing yourself. You walk away because your energy is no longer available for pretending, for shrinking, for self-abandonment, for giving CPR to things that were meant to die. Ask yourself, what part of me must die if I stay? What part of me might live if I go? These are not intellectual questions. They're soul-rattling, identity-shattering rites of passage. And the answers don't come easy. They come in dreams, in breakdowns, in sleepless nights. They come when you're staring at a ceiling, whispering, I can't keep doing this. Walking away is not escape. It's embodiment. It's refusing to play a part in your own disintegration. It's saying, I choose to live, even if it costs me everything that once made me feel safe. And the irony? The moment you let go of the old, with all its illusions of safety, is the moment life finally begins to move toward you. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped resisting the truth of who you are. That's why Jung emphasizes suppression or flight from our fears only deepens inner confusion. The right approach is not to avoid fear, but to face it, understand it, and ultimately reconcile with it. One of the most essential aspects of confronting fear, according to Jung, is that it necessarily implies confronting the shadow. Facing our fears means facing those parts of ourselves we've exiled into the unconscious. Jung believed that fears often arise from distorted perceptions and unconscious beliefs. When a person begins to recognize and decode these fears correctly, they gain the power to transmute them. Fear, then, is not just a threat. It becomes a psychological tool, a signal of transformation. It becomes a guide toward emotional maturity and a more integrated personality. Jung taught that facing our fears, rather than suppressing them and processing them through conscious integration, is a necessary part of our spiritual journey. The act of confronting what frightens us reveals our inner power. By turning toward what we fear, we step into a transformative process that can give our lives new meaning, depth, and orientation. Jung also emphasized the inevitability of transformation. Change is not a temporary phase, it's a law of inner life. Human beings are not static structures. We are dynamic, continuously evolving organisms, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually. Everything we experience, trauma, love, loss, success, disillusionment, becomes part of our personal alchemy. Each crisis, each period of transition, becomes a doorway to inner evolution. For Jung, the path of human development is a movement toward what he called the self, a holistic inner structure that includes not only the ego, but also the unconscious, the shadow, and the archetypal layers of the psyche. To walk this path is to integrate these aspects into a single, coherent identity. This integration leads to a deeper awareness of who we really are. It's not driven by external achievements, social roles, or the illusion of perfection, but by the unfolding of something eternal within. According to Jung, true change doesn't just come from outer conditions. It emerges from a necessity within the structure of the soul. We are seekers by nature. Our inner hunger propels us toward deeper levels of consciousness. Jung stresses that our transformation must be both inward and outward. While we are shaped by society and culture, our evolution also depends on cultivating inner strength and a connection to the self. Over time, our sense of identity matures. At first, we define ourselves by external accomplishments or conformity to social ideals. But as we grow, we begin to seek something more authentic, something inward. This quest leads to psychological wholeness, spiritual meaning, and a sense of personal responsibility. For Jung, the spiritual evolution of the individual is also part of a larger collective process. We are not isolated beings, we are nodes in a vast web of shared consciousness. Society, culture, and the collective unconscious all influence who we become. But equally, as we change, we help change the world. Jung called this individual process individuation, a deep, often lifelong journey of integrating all parts of the psyche, conscious and unconscious, into a unified whole. In this process, we move beyond superficial identity and align with our deeper essence. Individuation is not just personal growth. It is the path to becoming who we are meant to be. Jung saw change as a sacred necessity, not merely an adaptation to life, but the foundation of life itself. Individuation, transformation, and integration are the means by which we activate our true potential. These are not just psychological goals, they are existential mandates. And this process unfolds not only within the individual, but also across the collective field. The collective unconscious, shaped by generations of shared human experience, holds the symbols, patterns, and archetypes that guide our growth. We carry these deep codes within us, and they manifest in dreams, myths, and life challenges. That is why, for Jung, the transformation of the individual is inseparable from the transformation of society. As one person heals and becomes whole, they contribute to the greater healing of the collective. Personal evolution becomes a ripple that influences culture, institutions, and even history. Every authentic inner transformation plants the seeds of new possibilities. These possibilities can lead to innovation, collective insight, and even spiritual renaissance. For Jung, the personal and the collective are not separate. They are two currents of the same river. The process of change, then, is sacred. It is the very structure of being human. To resist this process is to stagnate. To surrender to it is to awaken. And every confrontation with fear, shadow, or inner conflict is a part of this awakening. Jung believed that only by understanding and embracing change can we find true inner peace. Not peace as the absence of struggle, but peace as the harmony that emerges when we align with the deeper flow of life. Each new experience becomes an initiation, bringing us closer to spiritual maturity and authentic freedom. This freedom is not given, it is earned through inner work, through conscious engagement with life. It is the freedom to live in alignment with your true self, rather than the demands of a false identity.